Welcome back to another episode of the Battle Buddy Podcast. Today we're going to talk about weapons of mass destruction, and it's not the weapons of mass destruction you're thinking about, so you want to stay tuned for this conversation.
Welcome to the Battle Buddy Podcast with Keith McKeever.
So welcome, Adam Jones, to the show. Welcome, Adam.
What's up, Keith? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Welcome to the podcast, man. It's a pleasure to have you on here and to talk about your book. But before we do, share us a little bit about your military story.
Yeah. Well, man, I appreciate how quickly you jump in. This is cool. I'm like already strapped in, ready to go. All right. So basically, I started with the Civil Air Patrol at 12 years old. So I was doing the whole military stuff, as a kid, and then flying planes and doing search and rescue missions and all that fun stuff. So I always knew I was going to join the military. When I was younger, I was like, man, I have to become a Blackhawk helicopter pilot. And for me, that was when I saw the movie Black Hawk Down. Awesome movie. Mom was super confused. Why do you want to do the thing that just got shot down? And I'm like, oh, it looks awesome.
Can't blame her for that, right? I mean,
yeah. So I always wanted to do that. Long story short, I joined the Army while doing Army ROTC. So I kind of went straight onto the officer path because I knew I wanted to be a pilot. So everything came down to the decision-making of what gets me that result, right? So I want to be a pilot. I'm going to choose the Army. It's my greatest chance of doing this. I'm not high speed enough to make it happen in the Air Force. Army's got more aircraft. They're a little bit, the selection process is a little bit easier for aviation. It's still hard, but let's be honest, it's easier for sure. I didn't get aviation. I got military police. So when I commissioned out of Penn State Army ROTC, I was becoming an MP, not wanting to be an MP, very confused at how I became an MP after all of those decisions.
Come on, that's a great world, man.
What was that? Yeah, it was cool. I originally was a criminal justice major too, so it's kind of funny how that worked out. My major ended up changing in school, but long story short, wanted to become an aviator, became an MP. As a first lieutenant, I was National Guard. So one thing that's kind of nice about the Guard is you do make a little bit of the career yourself, right? So I'm like, hey, just a heads up, I really want to fly. And if a flight slot opens up for interviews, I want to take it. And then eventually it finally happened. Took a lot of work, but became an aviator. I was a platoon leader, company commander for aircraft maintenance. And I finished up, man, with space. Actually, I went into a space battalion for just about a year, which that was pretty cool. And then I just knew I needed to get out. I had to figure out how to be I was a new father, and I felt like I wasn't really getting it down, and just everything was just so competing for my attention. I couldn't keep up. And I was like, man, I want to be a more present dad, so I'm going to make myself more available. Long story short, what I learned? Availability does not equal presence.
That's true and incredibly deep.
I'm a deep guy,
wow.
Man.
I had a funny feeling we might get a little deep on some subjects today. One of which is your book. Let me get that scrolling up there. So, first and foremost, you're an author and you got a website, adamjonesbook.com. So people can go there and check out your website and all about your book and everything. But tell us a little bit about your book. I gave the preview in the beginning.
Yeah.
Weapons of Mass Destruction. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah. So, no, it's cool. Basically, I made this title as a playoff of Weapons of Mass Destruction. The title is called Weapons of Mass Deception: Detect and Defeat the 4 Weapons Destroying Your Peace, Purpose, and Power. Right. So, one of my really awesome assignments when I was in, I was guard my whole career. I was guard. Within being in the Guard, probably had about I think it's a little over 6 years of active, right, from the 10 years of service. So a lot of it was just doing this every day. And one of my everyday assignments for a period of time was working for the Department of Homeland Security, FEMA Region 8, right, which was so cool because I got to work for the DHS GS-15. So, anyone listening, right, it's very high up governmental, official. And I was working for him as an ops analyst, but then he made me his executive officer. So now I'm starting to get mentored by him and really seeing the way he thinks. And I started to learn a lot about targets and, how the enemy chooses a target, right? And it's not always the building. It could be a group of people, right? It could literally, at one point, the primary target was just mass gatherings. So thinking of that, and then thinking about how there are weapons that affect us as veterans, as military members, as first responders, that are unique to us and that are hurting people in the process. So I call them weapons of mass deception because they spread, right? It starts in our heart, it spreads into our home, and it shifts into the headquarters and follows us. And that's why I want you to just, as you're hearing this, think of the spreading effect of a weapon of mass destruction, and now realize it's actually in the heart and it's a deception, meaning it's not true, right? There are things we believe that are true that are no longer getting us the results we want in life. Why? Why would that be? Because it's a deception. It's never going to get the result. A great example of a deception, super easy. If you work really hard your whole life, you'll be successful and rich. I know a lot of people who worked hard their whole life, they didn't become successful and rich. So it wasn't working hard your whole life was not the way of getting that result. There's something else, right? So for me, that was really key.
Yeah, I mean, you could sit there and grab a shovel and dig ditches for $5 an hour for the rest of your life, and definitely not get rich.
Yep.
But if you work up to the point where you get backhoes and equipment, I mean, you could dig more ditches and dig them faster and make more money. Certainly. So, no, that totally makes sense. So,
yeah. Yeah, and like
yeah.
with that, right? I think something that would benefit whoever's listening right now is understanding how did I even come up with that language? It's not because I'm clever. It's because I was in pain. You see what I'm saying? Like, this is a story about all of us, even though our stories are not the same. I think I just rhymed. I think that was like a Dr. Seuss thing right there. That was weird.
You are the father of some little ones, so
Yeah, right. That's so
too
funny.
much Dr. Seuss in your life.
So basically, what I'm trying to say is we do not have the same story. None of us do, but there's things we have in common that cause us to feel certain struggles, right? And in that, I remember just looking at my wife, having her look back at me, seeing that she was tired, seeing that she was worn out from the man that I became after the service. It was happening while I was in too, right? But after I got out, it was like magnified because now I don't have any outlet to express my mission mindset or any of that kind of stuff. Like we all know there's a lot of things that are lost in that process. But for me, the big thing was like, seeing that pain and then realizing what's going on in my heart has spread to my home. So knowing that, Keith, made me say, now's the time to fight. I'm not hiding anything. I'm not fooling anyone. And there's people on here who are listening. You're not fooling anyone. Your spouse knows what you're going through. Whether you're saying it or not, it can be felt. Not only can it be felt, it's actually hurting them.
Well, nonverbal communication is what, like 90% of communication. So yeah, I mean, and the longer you're together with your spouse, the more you're going to be in tune with each other. My wife and I are, gosh, we're coming upon our 13th anniversary. Like we know each other pretty darn well after almost 13 years together. Like we could, it's certainly, it's not 50 years like some people. Like they can just they can feel each other's presence. Like, but we can look at each other and know we could do that for 5 or 6 years now at this point. So yeah, like you can really, like you can feel the presence. You can feel when somebody's off. You can feel when they're absent-minded or distracted or the mindset's not right there. So
Yeah.
I totally get that. So was there was there something in particular in your life that kind of made you kind of take that accountability and this realization for yourself?
Yeah, man. Let's open up the book here real quick. Let's check this out. Here's the book, Weapons of Mass Deception. Okay. Awesome book. Highly recommend it. I'm biased though. But
A little should be.
I thought it sucked at first. I was like, this book sucks. I hate writing it. I don't think it's going to help anyone. And then I got picked up by a publisher and they worked magic. So I'm just saying it's not a one-man effort here. An entire team made this thing happen. I'm just very thankful for it. It didn't suck. I was just a critic of myself, like we all are. We're like our own worst enemies. And I was like, I don't know. I don't see it all connecting. But listen to this part. So the sound of a text alert on my phone captured my focus. Glancing away from my computer for a moment, I looked down and saw a notification that my wife had sent me a text. This is about to answer your question. I'm just not happy. I do everything around here. I don't want you to defend yourself right now. I just want you to listen to how I feel. I don't feel loved by you anymore. I don't feel appreciated. It's like you take me for granted. Crazy, huh? So I can laugh because, man, my life's amazing now. Like crazy. I have no idea how my greatest weakness has become my greatest strength. I'm a man of faith. For me, I believe God did a whole lot of work in the background. What happened in my heart, it started to change the way I saw the world, the way I saw my family. I saw them through eyes of obligation instead of anticipation, right? It was an obligation. I got to be a good father, a good husband, because that's what you do. But I wasn't anticipating the moments. I wasn't anticipating driving my kids to daycare. At one point, during this time, I had one girl. Now I have two girls. So now it's kids, right? But still, it's like, I wasn't anticipating that. Date nights, dude, that was a time off the calendar that could have been for business. See what I'm saying? Like I could have been building something and impacting someone. Listen how messed up that thinking is. But that's what I thought. And a lot of us think that way. It's like, oh, I'm going to take a rest and I'm going to be with my family, but I'm also going to be a little bit less present, less powerful, all those type of things. I'm just going to kind of coast, when really that's when that's the big game right there. That's when we show up. So when I got that text, Keith, that was the quit making excuses, Adam. You know what I mean? That was, I'm telling you right now, I'm not happy. And if you heard what she said, I don't need any more excuses. Because see, what I would do is I would always give reasons. Hey, let me tell you why the groceries weren't put away yet. Let me tell you why. And it was always a good reason. Well, I was doing this. And hey, I know you said to do that, but I actually did this instead. And I know I'm supposed to pick up the girls by 3:30, but actually this ran over. So I prioritized. Everything made sense to me, but to her, they were excuses. And I think she was right.
I would definitely argue that she was right. And it definitely sounds like, in some way, almost like a smack in the back of the head, like, hey, dummy, wake up.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, hey, come back into this world and get those priorities right. Figure out what you need to do. Like, take care of what you need to take care of. Like, yeah, there's a time for business. Like sometimes you're going to have to be busy. You're going to have to take care of business, but you also have to take care of family. You got to take care of the kids. You got to take care of those responsibilities. Heck, we're all guilty of it. Some of those things you just described, hey, I'm right there with you.
Mm-hmm.
I've done some of those things in the last week where neglected things around the house that I probably should have taken care of, laundry, ordering the groceries online, those kind of things. Hey, it is what it is, but I love that message of just be more present, more mindful, build that time and be present and mindful of those loved ones in your life. I know that the time goes by fast. My kids are a lot older than yours, and it goes by really fast, really, really fast. And before you blink, they get to these preteen age, and I'm getting to the point now where it's like, man, I work so much. It's like, how can I incorporate more time, even more time, into my kid's life? What more can I do with my boys to make memories while they're young? Because that time is slipping by fast. Even if I think I'm putting enough time in with them, how can I put more? Because that time with my wife, like all those things, like with my mom, my nieces and my nephews, like how can you be more purposeful with that time? Because you don't know how much time you got. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Well, what you said at the end was key, right? So it's not just about how much time, because a lot of things are competing for our time, but the quality of those moments, right? Like, am I fully engaged when I take my kids to the playground? Or am I checking my phone, doing business meetings? Which that was me. I mean, honestly, like, hey, dude, I got this going, this going, this going. They're playing, they're having fun. A lot of us have done that. And, you start to look around and you see all the parents who show up, but they're not engaged. And what's cool about this message, right? I really want to share this with you. What I do is I take this experience as a pilot and make it applicable to our life today, right? So like, as an Army pilot, and I started flying when I was 12. So at 12 years old, started flying Cessnas, eventually did the Army thing, got to fly that way. And in the Army, man, you had to memorize the emergency procedures and limitations for the aircraft perfectly. Dude, perfectly. If it said the word and you said the instead, or as well, or some, I mean, any other word, it was a fail for the day. You failed that day, right? And enough of those, you're out, right? And then I'm talking about like 50, 60 pages, word for word memorized of a giant manual, right? The point is, why did we have to do that? Because there really was a mission and lives were really at stake and would be, and we have to be able to execute. So how are we training today for these emergencies in our life? How are we training today to respond to the chaos of the home? And what I realized is, as a pilot, there's a moment, and I talk about this in a chapter called Drift Happens, right? Where my crew chief goes, "Sir, you're drifting left." Now, you guys can read this in the book. If you go to adamfjonesbook.com, you can grab it for yourself. But one thing I did is I made an excuse then too, right? Actually, I didn't even respond. So I'm going to paint the story for you for a second. It's NVG flight. We all got our night vision goggles on. A medic is about to go down the hoist. I'm a younger pilot, right? A little bit less experienced. This is a new maneuver for me. This is a high risk operation. We are in a concealed area, right? So vegetation is surrounding us entirely, 360, right? And we're dropping down into that vegetation, about to put a medic down. And we're probably about 50 feet above the ground or so, which is a very high hover. But I'm under night vision goggles, which makes it way harder because we all know NVGs, what that's like to see through the tubes. But now you're flying an aircraft too. So you're moving everything, moving your head. You got a medic about to drop down. And I can't tell that I'm drifting. This is really, really key for all of us. I can't see it because I'm so focused on keeping the aircraft in place and what I'm currently seeing. Based on what I'm seeing, the aircraft looks like it's good. But my visual scan, if I would have looked other places, I would have seen, hey, we're actually drifting to the left. But because I'm looking this way, I can't tell. If you're watching a video, you see what I'm talking about. I'm looking this way, I'm drifting left, I don't know it. But if I would have looked this way, I would have been able to tell, right? If I would have looked off the nose.
That makes sense, yeah.
So my crew chief calls it out. And he goes, "Sir, you're drifting left." I don't respond. That's not good. You don't do that, right? "Sir, you're drifting left." And he emphasizes it. And I go, "Oh, man, dude, I know." And aviation's chill, right? So I'm like, "Hey, I totally get it, man. Hang on, let me try to lock it in. Like the winds off the nose are really beating me up right now. This is," and I start telling a story. And he jumps in and he's like, "Sir, you are drifting left. I don't need any excuses. Just fix it." Right? We all drift. So we get back in a position, everything's good. And then there's like this big teaching moment, which I love those moments. You don't want to have them, but when you have them, you'll never forget them, right? So the medic's back in, everyone's safe. And he's like, "Hey, you had a medic who's about to come out of this aircraft, who's already hanging from the aircraft, about to go down. And you're talking about why you didn't know you were drifting." And he said, "It's okay. We all drift." He said, "Drift is totally normal. Just acknowledge it. Now apply that to your life. It's okay if you're not showing up all engaged and powerful and present. I wasn't either. Let's first say, okay, it's not happening, and then acknowledge it. But are you seeing your own drift?" This book will help you with that. But I also believe we need people in our life who say like, "Yeah, dude, I see it right now. This is not who you are. This is not the best version of you." We need our spouses to say, "Hey, I need you to show up a little bit stronger right now." So it's all good. Drift happens. It's totally natural. And when you can actually get to the point where you acknowledge that drift and you stop the drift and then you correct it, there's an order to this. When you do it that way, man, everyone around you is just going to start to even be drawn closer to you because they're going to go, that is rare in society.
Yeah. That's everybody should have a spouse that can spot that. And it just made me think of like the yes man, the person that's not going to tell you what you really need to hear, not necessarily yes, but it sounds like your wife is quite a bit like my wife, that's going to tell you something that you may not want to hear sometimes, but you need to hear it. My wife told me for years she would get on me about my weight. You need to lose weight. Do you really need to eat that? You're eating too much? This, that, and the other. And I'm going to be really vulnerable here for a minute. She would just get on me constantly. You're eating too much. You don't need to eat that. Do you need that dessert with that? This, that, and the other. And it would bug me. But in your words, she was kind of telling me, you're drifting. Like, this is not what you need to do. This is not healthy for you. I love you. This is not a good path for you. This is obviously this, plays a factor in your health. And I got to the point where my weight got to a certain point and certain things just, you start looking at those numbers at the doctor's office, right? And it's like, man, this ain't good. I got to do something now, And then she kind of started laying off, but it was between her and the doctor, man. I started looking at all that stuff and I was like, man, these between my very blunt doctor and my very blunt wife, it's yeah, I gotta shape up, man, and start flying straight. I gotta start doing something about this. Like, it's not time for, I can't make excuses anymore. I gotta start taking action. So, like, myself, just use my example. Like, it was like, okay, start eating healthy, portion control, log in my calories, use every resource available, man. I went to VA. Already went to the VA Whole Health. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go into the MOVE program. I'll try that again. Accountability. Every 2 weeks I meet with somebody. Like, keep me back on this track. And I've, like, as we're recording this, I've lost like 35 pounds since November.
Yeah.
It's like, it's once again being vulnerable, but like, that's what it takes to just be like, something's got to change. Like, it's not good to go down that path, right? That's just physical health. But like, it could be anything in your life. So, man, I love
Absolutely.
that. I love that message, man. The drift.
Drift happens. Yeah. I'll share that with, college football teams when I go speak, as a speaker and leadership trainer, and they eat that up, right? Because we want to be told, dude, you already know you can be better. Now we want someone to say, I know you can be better, and catch this. I care about you so much, I'm going to call it out, and then we can get better at how we do that, right? Like when I work with like a corporate executive, like in leadership consulting, that's going to be approached a little bit differently than a military scenario. You might say something like, hey, look, I know you, like, let's say this is your direct report. You'd be like, hey, look, I know it's important to you that you progress in your career. And you told me that you want to become a director at this company one day. Is that right? The person's like, yeah, that's right. Like, all right, well, if there's anything I've seen lately that I think can help you, would you want to know about it? Yeah, I'd want to know about it. See, it takes more patience. This is not military. Like, we don't do this stuff in the military.
But, yeah, you can't come out with a knife camera, right? You can't come out with a knife hand, right?
but we're not all that compatible with the civilian world a lot of the times. We have to start to learn to change. If we're the 1%, we need to adapt to the 99%. There's certain parts of the 1%, keep that mentality, all that good stuff, right? Mission driven, that's amazing. But change how we communicate and connect, unless you're in that environment again, which most of us aren't. So in this case, look, if I saw something, would you want to know? Yes. Okay. Well, here's what I noticed. That's you calling out the drift. Hey, one thing I noticed is the past month, you've been showing up late to this meeting. And I just don't think that's going to help you become a director. What do you think? Man, that's so hard to do. What I just described is so much harder than it. Like, I make it sound easy, but if I was in front of someone, that's hard to do.
But it should be easy for veterans to do as leaders, people who we are trained to lead from the get-go, especially if you are an NCO or, maybe, some of the officers at least. you tell the difference between an officer and enlisted guys, right? But to be able to sit down and have that conversation of like, you have to train your replacement. You have no choice. Everybody
Yeah,
needs to
yeah.
know everybody else's job. So when you get into that corporate job, to be able to tap somebody on the shoulder and have that conversation and be like, hey, I know you really want to progress in your job. Do you want to, you know, you know, I know there's some things that you could do if you don't mind a little constructive criticism. There's just some weaknesses here. Hey, you're
Yeah.
strong here, here, and here, but there's some weaknesses here, here, and here. I know, Johnny over here is really good at this, and Sally over here is really good at this. How about you, maybe go learn
Yeah.
from them to
Love it.
strengthen those weaknesses, right? Make yourself a better candidate because we'd really love to see you succeed in this company, right? Like civilians don't get that.
Mm-mm.
And if you showed up as a leader in a company and you tap somebody on the shoulder, and said, hey, come with me. I want to see you go to the top. And man, they will follow you anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And use that leadership skills you learned in the military. Those are the skills that get you far in a company. But anyway, off my soapbox on that one. But
Dude, I'm all about it. I am all about it because you're right. We're trained to see these things. As a helicopter pilot, I'm trained to see something before it breaks. Right. That's the big difference between a fixed wing pilot and a rotary pilot. If you talk to if you look at like the memes and stuff, and I believe it because I am both. And a helicopter, dude, you're like, what's going to break next? Like you're constantly like, oh my God, like where am I going to land if this happens? Because you don't have as much of a, you can't glide. Okay. There's no
exactly.
glide.
I was just gonna say, yeah, you could somewhat glide some of those planes in.
Yeah.
I don't know about a
There's
C5 or a
an
C-17, but
Right. So anyways, no, I love that. Right. So this is something I'm super passionate about, is partnering with military communities, veteran communities, and say, look, you already got this skill that's very hard to develop. You already got this mindset, this lens in the way you see the world. Now we need to teach you how to connect it to the community you're in now, because it's different. We cannot talk the same way. You're going to be an outcast, an outsider. I know that's how I felt. I still feel that way sometimes. People would say, very recently, someone was like, hey, that last text was very assertive. That was too assertive. And I went back and looked at it and I was like, I guess I could see how that's possible. I mean, yeah, like I'm so used to being the commander that I'm still talking about like rallying the troops in a way, like, hey, here's what we need to do. But sometimes I'm the lowest person on the totem pole. Well, I can't tell everyone else what to do. It just depends, right? Like I'm a full-time employee as a project manager too. So if I'm working with someone else of a higher level. So anyways, yeah, good discussion, man. I appreciate that.
absolutely. So wanted to dive into a couple of other topics and just get your quick thoughts on it. So in the book, you kind of talk about a couple different things, but transitions, relationships, and healing the heart. Any thoughts on some of those?
Yeah. So the big thing with transitions is I'm going to give you guys some language real quick that I think will help you going forward. I have talked to so many veterans, right? This is like what I do right now. As I was writing this book is not about Adam. There's like a chapter or two. There's lessons from my life, but this is about us. Okay. This is about our culture, our structures that we're used to, and how in there weapons can form without us even knowing it. That hurt a lot of people in the process. And we go, man, why is there 73,000 suicides in 13 years? Right? Like why would that have happened? Well, there must be something happening culturally and in the way we're wired and the way we perform that is no longer congruent once the uniform comes off. Okay. So anyways, I'll talk to so many people, man, and they all have regrets for things that they didn't do. And what's even more interesting, and I shared this with someone, I was talking to this guy, he was a Marine, right? He didn't tell me he was a Marine until, 30 minutes into the conversation. And he knew I was an author, about to be an author, and he heard my message and liked it, but he was just asking all his questions. He was a quiet dude. And he goes, hey, I was in the military once. And I said, oh, it's cool, man. Like, that's awesome. He's like, I didn't do much though. And he jumped in real quick. I didn't do much though. And I said, and then he said it again. And he said, yeah, I was just a Marine. I was only in the reserves and the Marines. I didn't do a lot. And I could feel right there in that moment, that guy in transition started to feel new levels of pain that he never felt before, right? The point was, after him and I had a conversation, what I found out is the guy never deployed. Well, guess who else never deployed? Me. I was in for 10 years. I was scheduled 3 times. They didn't happen. I had to own that story, man, and say, you know what? That's just what happened in my life. I couldn't have controlled it. So what I said to him, and I'll say this to everyone today, why do we have regrets for the things we didn't do that we weren't asked to do? Why do we apologize for not doing things that we weren't asked to do? You see what I'm
That
saying?
you had no control over in the first place.
Right. We hold our head low. We hold our head low. We feel shame. Our tone changes. We don't want to talk about the military time because according to him, he said, those 6 years of my life, it's as if they never happened. It's as if I can't tell anyone about those 6 years because I don't qualify in the eyes of like a normal, whatever Marine to where I actually was like in and deployed and all that stuff. So I don't tell people. So it's as if my life is behind already. That's sad. That's very sad. But what's interesting is that's most of us. I achieved my childhood dream. I became a Blackhawk helicopter pilot. You think I would walk in heavy confidence for the rest of my life? No, I didn't. These things will never give you the lasting confidence you're looking for. A title won't, a performance, a measurement won't. That's why I talk about losing your sense of peace, purpose, and power. These weapons destroy your peace, purpose, and power. Not just yours, the people around you. They affect the multitudes, meaning it starts with the heart, spreads to the home, shifts to the headquarters. A lot of people are feeling this because leaders carry influence, even if that influence is not a positive influence. So anyways, transitions, right? Right there's a moment of transition. We talk about the heart and how in our heart, it's more than just a mindset. It's as if a mindset shifts into a belief. I'm going a little bit spiritual health here for a moment. Okay. Spiritual fitness. We all remember that one from the military, but like, man, if in the core of who we are, we cannot embrace that and we don't know the answers to these things, we're going to show up and we're going to operate on a lower level of energy. I mean, dude, I couldn't keep eye contact with people. Why? How's that make sense? How'd that happen to me? I'd order something from a waitress and I would look away. And if someone talking about the military, I would look away and my wife would she called me out again. Hey, do you know you like look away from people when you explain these things? And I was like, oh, I didn't even know it. It's just a natural tendency of really it's shame and guilt. Right. So anyways, I mean, that's part one. We could talk about one of these weapons here in just a moment, but that's what I'd say to start.
That really frames everything in the story of that Marine. Because I have heard that a lot. I do a lot of volunteering with the honor flight. I've signed a lot of veterans up to go on honor flights. And I've heard that same excuse for the honor flight network. Well, I don't want to take somebody else's slot because I didn't deploy. I didn't deserve it. I wasn't in long enough. I didn't do this job, whatever. And what we always tell those guys is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you deployed or not. It doesn't matter what your job is. There's some statistic somewhere. It takes 12 troops back home to support the one in combat. It doesn't matter. You still wore the uniform. You were still ready to go.
Yes.
You were still trained to go. Somebody still had to be here on the home front to hold things down, to do the job back here that needed to be done. So you got to hold your head high and know that you were here, ready to go, and ready to fill that next slot if need be. Because, I had no control over my deployments. Hey, if I could go back, like I probably wouldn't have gone on the first one. And the second one, shoot, I would have extended like for a year. that was nice and cushy compared to the first one. So like, I mean, you have no control over those environments, so don't let it control you.
I love it. That's very well said. Very well said. Man. And like in that, the one thing I've learned that's helping people is I flip it to a question. So then it becomes their own answer. So instead of saying you had no control, I'd say, hey, if you were asked to go, would you have gone? They're like, yeah, of course. Okay. You weren't asked. Thank you for doing what you did. You weren't asked. I wasn't asked either. Like I've owned that. I've owned it so much to where now I openly say it so loud so that others can start to say their story. People will tell me, man, this is a weapon. This is one of the 4 weapons of mass deception. We're talking about it right now. I was only a truck driver. I never shot a gun. I never shot, at any enemy while I was overseas, even though I deployed twice and it was to all these dangerous areas. I didn't do anything. I just drove a truck. So I felt like I never fought. So when I got out, I really started to fight with myself. Okay. Another person was like, I was only in the Air Force National Guard, and I only deployed, and it was like to a FOB. And I go, I was only in the Army Guard. What's up with all the onlys, guys? You see how this is like such a destructive weapon? I mean, it's destroying what I call a protector. This is an identity that we can take with us for the rest of our life. We can always be protectors. You can't always be a sergeant. I can't always be a captain. You know what I mean? But I could always be a protector. I could have been a protector from birth. I could have had a mindset of protecting people, right? So like you got to zoom out, take a core identity that lasts forever, and then now operate through that. That's my company, Kingdom Operatives, right? We operate out of who we are, knowing results will come. Man, I'm showing up. I'm going to this event today. I'm a protector. And then you just start to own it. And it doesn't matter what all the onlys are, because they're just part of your story. And you can't have everyone else's story. You know what I mean? Like I became
your story is uniquely yourself. Like,
yeah,
there's a lot of power in owning your own story. It's like uniquely yours. It's like your fingerprints. Like it's your story. Like nobody else did exactly the same service that you did. You know, the same duty stations, the same deployments or not deployments or whatever, same job. Like, the good times, the bad times, the funny stories, the sad stories, like everybody's service is different. So
dude, you're onto something with that. Think of all of us with a fingerprint for our time in the service.
Yeah.
So what's the common ground, right? Because I really believe we have to find common ground in order to connect with each other. I'm talking about veterans connecting with veterans, military members connecting with veterans. I'm talking about different eras connecting with one another, different wars and battles fought, saying we actually have something in common. And you know what we all have in common? We all stepped out of the structure of the service. Hands down, every one of us did that. We had structure. We no longer have the structure. Some people might have been a Navy SEAL. Other people might have been Army Reserves. Other people might have been Coast Guard. I don't know. We all had structure, and we stepped out of the structure. And in that structure, we had a way of thinking, operating. We had cultural norms. We had ways we communicated. I don't know about you, man, but I remember, one time, this is probably 3 years ago, I was at an event with these big, amazing leaders. And this one guy says, hey, or I say to him, hey, tomorrow, what are we wearing? What's the dress code? And he goes, no, there's no dress code. And I said, yeah, I know. But like, what are we wearing? And like, he's like, no, just whatever you want to wear. And I remember being like, I don't know what to wear. I don't even know how to stand. You know what I mean? Like, where do my hands go? Like all those norms that are not the norm anywhere else, and realize what we lost when we stepped out.
And you got to think about like, the rank structure goes out. I was enlisted, you were an officer. When we were in, we would not have had such a casual conversation in uniform. And here
right.
we're both veterans now. Like who cares? We both served. It doesn't matter what your rank was or what your job was. Like we're in the same cool kids club, as I like to call it. Like we're in the same brotherhood, sisterhood. We're all one big semi-happy family of veteran brothers and sisters. We have our disgruntled family members, but they're out there. We got to claim them. But we just it's a different world, and you have to kind of adapt to it. But it takes some adjusting, that's for sure.
Yeah. So what you and I have been talking about this whole time is a weapon called the trap of title. Okay, it's a weapon of mass deception. It is our fourth weapon of mass deception. I will hit on it a lot harder in the book. If this conversation is helping you right now, anyone who's listening, man, definitely dive deep into this one, because the trap of title is not just affecting military. I work with college athletes. I've done talks to professional athletes on a small level, like small scale, with like a couple of them, and I'll share this, and they go, stop. I go, what? And they said, well, you just described, that's how we feel. And I'm talking to like a former Pittsburgh Steeler. And I'm like, that's how you feel the same way? And they said, yeah. you know what it was like to stop playing for the Steelers? You know what it was like to no longer be never to be able to be called a football player again, right? And to only be seen as a football player by others. You know what I mean? Dude, I really struggle with only being a Blackhawk pilot after a while, because that, you said Cool Kids Club, that was my cool card. That was the only way I thought you would like me. Okay. I mean, any veteran could relate to this. Like, just by you saying you were in the service, you became a little bit cooler to someone depending on who you're around, right? So you purposely use it all the time. I know I did. Now I'm just Adam, and Adam's awesome. Okay. I'm biased, but dude, I really appreciate who I am now. And every once in a while, I'll pull in the Blackhawk card because it's needed. You know, I'll pull in the Army background. But really, Adam is who Adam is, and he has a background where he used to be in the military, and that's cool too, you know. And it's not like one is dead. Sometimes you let the other one die, and you're like, I'm never going to tell it. No, like, integrate it as needed. Use these as tools in your tool belt, right?
That's an important part of your past, but I've been out for maybe 12 years this fall. I was only in for 5.5. You know, here, I mean, I've almost been out of the military twice as long as I was in. But I still so firmly, I mean, it's such a big part of my life because I went in at 21, but between 2 deployments and all the stuff I did, it was such a huge part of my young adult life.
Yes.
But now that I've been out for so long, like, it's still such a huge part of who I am. Obviously, with the podcast and all the veteran stuff that I love and enjoy doing. I love being connected to the community. I really do. But yeah, like, I don't always walk around doing that, but sometimes when you're meeting people and you're networking in an event, like, sometimes, like, it could build some rapport with a client or something like that. Like, it could, hey, like, sometimes it could be a deal closer or a connector piece, or sometimes, like, it could just help at a networking event when you don't know anybody and you're just, like, feel like a bump on a log, or like the weird guy in the corner. You just need to strike up a conversation. Like, okay, tell some funny stories. Not the dark humor. Avoid the dark humor. No,
they don't get that.
Don't go that way. Don't recommend that one. But anyway, just like, share the stories. It's a part of your past. Like, share it. Be proud of it. Like, share the stories, the good ones. It's nothing to be afraid of or, like, shy away from.
Yep. And what I noticed is I was using it all the time because I didn't know at all who I was without it. It was like a dependency. You know what I mean? I was like codependent to where, like, it wasn't a networking event. It was just a casual conversation with anyone. And in the first 30 seconds, they're going to find out I was a Blackhawk helicopter pilot because that sounds cool. And then maybe you'll trust me. Maybe you'll know I'm actually a decent guy. You know what I mean? Like, dude, like, honestly, my heart is to serve others. And if that's going to help them connect with me quicker, then great. But what I started to realize was it wasn't doing that. It was actually creating a gap. It was creating a gap where they're going, oh, wow, well, I never served. I never, gap is forming. Leaders don't want gaps. Leaders want to do everything they can to close the gap, right? So I'm like, oh, this is not working. You know what I mean? Like, you said it. It came out of your words real quickly. You said I was only in for 5 years, but those 5 years were formative, right? But why only? Why do we even say only? Like, that's significant. You know what I mean? Like,
that's a good point. Yeah. Well, I was saying
there's just some things we all
only
need
in comparison to the amount of time I've been out.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah. But
this isn't a therapy session for you.
Yeah. Are you sure? Do I need to lay on my couch? No.
I'm not a therapist.
Oh man. But yeah, it's yeah, man, there's a lot to unpack there with all that. There's a lot of good stuff there. So I think one of the last things I wanted to go down here is something that we brought up when we talked the first time here a couple weeks ago, and get your thoughts on it, because we brought it up briefly. And I know it hit you kind of funny when we just kind of stumbled on these words, but mindset of measurements.
Wow.
So, break down some of your thoughts on that. Now
Yeah.
that you've had a couple weeks to kind of process that one.
Yeah, we were like flowing, and that came out of our conversation. I was like, dude, like I like alliterations. And for me, when I find alliterations, sometimes I find deeper meaning within it. So for me, we were taught a mindset of measurements. Our mind was trained to look at measurements and to size people up, to size situations up. It needed to be that way, right? These are not things that the military is doing wrong, by the way. This is called transitioning effectively. This is called understanding that there are different cultures. And this is the most aggressive, most systematic culture that we could have ever been a part of, that probably anyone could ever join. And then when you leave, you're wondering why you don't fit in anymore. Well, because you were part of like a system, like you were
One could almost call it kind of a cult in some ways. You can almost paint that picture. Just saying.
Sure. So with that, when you come out, it's like, dude, I don't even freedom feels like a prison, right? Like, cause you're trapped in your own thoughts. You don't know how to process them. Okay. So for me, one thing that I really started to see as a pilot is I was always measured. Now, a lot of us are that way. As an aviator, though, if you fail a flight, we call these check flights, or check rides, a check ride, and you could get a no-notice check ride. I've talked to a lot of aviators about this, the no notice, right? And this happens all the time. It can happen anytime. So you could be on your worst day ever, and there could be a no notice scheduled for you. And that no notice is an evaluator is going to fly with you. And now you're going to go through an entire exam on everything involving that flight. Your pre-flight, you could get asked any questions there, your post-flight, the flight itself, the crew briefing, anything, emergency procedures, limitations, they're all on the table. Okay. And if you fail a no notice, you are now put into most often a flight evaluation board, meaning you're done flying and now we're going to evaluate you to see if we want to keep you flying. Think of the pressure that is on that person. Okay. And that's what it was like, man. It was so stressful. I knew it was time for it to end for me because I wasn't bringing my best home anymore. And it was just like, dude, I just feel like I'm constantly being measured. I get it. Again, probably has to be that way. But when you have a mindset of measurements and you take that mindset now into your home where measurements are maybe not as needed. Okay. So here's an example. In the military, if I underperform as a company commander, what eventually would happen?
You can get fired.
Right.
Relieved command. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Okay. So my performance determines if I get to stay. Right. Not just in a company, but in a society, in a culture, in an organization, in a team. I mean, the military was way more than just like, I'm working for, like, let's say I'm working for Boeing and I could get fired because I failed or, whatever. This is bigger than that. This is a way of life, right? So that way of life is so accepted by all of us that we start to say, look, you got to perform in order to stay. Makes sense. It's a high risk organization, right? High stakes, all that stuff, not high risk. So anyways, that performance determines if I get to stay. Not only does the performance determine if I stay, but also eventually can start to make us think that's where I'm valuable. So if I underperform, I'm no longer valuable, right? If I'm not performing and I am not of value to this team, I am not valuable. Now, let's say that you have a time in the military. I meet people with this story. Actually, as a company commander, there was someone I had to, a couple people I had to remove. And one of them I said, hey, I just want you to know you're actually a leader. You're actually someone who can have tremendous influence if done the right way. And you already have it in this unit, which is why I can't keep you, right? You are not bad for this world. You're just not right for this unit. You're just not right for the military right now. Okay. Because see, if that mindset leaves and it goes into our home and we say, I'm underperforming as a father, I probably shouldn't be a father anymore. I'm underperforming as a husband. I should probably just leave. I'm ruining this home. I'm underperforming as a mother. Well, I'm going to leave. I'm going to shut down. I'm going to quit because I was trained to think this way. Now, we're not really a quitting type of people, but there also is this mindset, at least that I've seen, where we go, I'm hurting the people around me. They're better off without me. Right? And if that's true, what if instead it's actually a weapon causing you to think this way? What if you could begin to no longer see your performance as a thing that determines your value and your belonging, but instead just a measurement in time of a moment in time that mattered, that tells you, hey, snapshot in time, this is where you're at. Okay, cool. How do I improve? Not, do I get to stay? Am I valuable? Do I belong to a team? But instead, hey, this is a great indicator for me right now, right? We talked about weight and stuff. Hey, good indicator. Now what? All right, let's put a plan in place. Let's go. When you start to see life through that lens, you begin to operate with what I call a contagious confidence, because your performance doesn't change your confidence anymore. Instead, it's, hey, look, it's just a snapshot in time. Yeah, I failed a flight exam. I probably need to study more next time. Or maybe aviation's done for me, whatever. But we don't need to take this mentality with us everywhere. That's kind of what I'm trying to get across in the time I got with you guys. In the book, I hit on this way more. And I'm telling you, a lot of people relate to this weapon because it's really a part of the way we operate. But it doesn't need to be that way any longer.
Awesome. Wow. Man, you're leaving us all kind of good sound bites, but I know we need to wrap it up, and I know you've got a little something for everybody. So I want to throw that up here. You're going to give a little gift out.
I am, yeah.
So go ahead and share with us what you were going to do here.
It's cool. I'm like reading the banner right now.
Yeah.
Get 3 free chapters of the book. Text Kingdom to 55444. All right, so let me explain it. So, I just really have on my heart that, a lot of people, we say, man, I think I want to read that book. I'm not sure. I don't know this guy that well yet. This guy's brand new to me, or this concept, I don't fully get it yet. I feel something there. I feel like I'm supposed to do this, but also I don't know if I have the time for it. I don't know if I want to spend $20. I mean, even though we spend that on like a gallon of gas or something, right?
That's like 2.5 cups of coffee at Starbucks.
Yeah. So if that's you, dude, that's totally cool. I get that. So that's why what I'm doing is I'm giving you the first 3 chapters totally for free, and you get them the second you do this right away. So all you need to do is text the word kingdom, KINGDOM, get out your phone, text the word kingdom to the number 55444. That's it. And in that moment, you're going to get the link. Click on the link. Right there's the entire first 3 chapters. And I think like the Fullbird colonels who are reading this as we speak, the maintenance test pilot who told me that he read this in 1 day, my buddy who's deployed right now, that you are going to find that you can't put this down, that there really is a journey for you in this book, because it's more than a book. It's a plan of attack for your life. Right. So I just think, why not give you the first 3 chapters, get you going now? You can even order now. Go to adamfjonesbook.com, order the book now, start reading the first 3 chapters, do it both, and enjoy
You could
that.
have 3 chapters done by the time my Amazon gets it to you.
That's right.
Yeah. No, let's just back up. You just said test pilot. There was a test pilot reading it.
Yeah. Maintenance test pilot for the whole battalion. This dude is phenomenal. Read it.
I hope he wasn't.
Huh?
Hope he wasn't reading it when he was flying.
He might have.
I don't think that's the kind of test pilot. That's so funny.
It's
kind of dangerous.
No, not that would be irresponsible.
Yeah.
But yeah, he read it in 1 day, one full, like he sent me a picture, said book's here. I'm going to start reading it today. And then like at the end of the night, I get a text saying that was phenomenal. He said, every service member needs to read this book and let this sink to the depth of their core. That's what he said. Not only did he say that, dude, Keith, this blows my mind. He said, I'm going to use it in my retirement speech if you allow me. I'm like, what? I mean,
Well,
the
I'd say
book's
it's a
been
heck
out
of a
for a
glowing
week,
endorsement.
dude. You know,
Wow.
I mean, what are we on right now? So this is February 27th. It came out February 15th. And I mean, you talk about that. That's some great feedback there. So yeah. Anyways, if it worked for
Awesome.
him, maybe it'll work for you guys, right?
Absolutely. So, man, well, I appreciate you sharing, the first 3 chapters with all the listeners. And is there any, I'll have that in the show notes for anybody listening, um, and the YouTube viewers as well. It'll all be linked in there along with everything else for you. But real quick, any place, socials, anything like that, anywhere people can reach out to you?
Yep. You can go to at lead with Adam pretty much anywhere. Try to keep it simple at lead with Adam. And if you follow me on Instagram, Facebook, those areas, I'm on there consistently, putting out new content to help you out, to help you really activate what I call the power in your presence.
Awesome. Well, Adam, I appreciate you stopping by the show and sharing with us.
Keith, man, this has been fun, dude. Thank you for
Yeah,
having me.
absolutely. You take it easy.
All right. See you, bud.
There you have it, folks. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you take advantage of the free book, the first 2 chapters anyway. And remember, go check out the website, battlebuddypodcast.net, for all kinds of information and resources. Like I always say, if there's something that's not on there you think it should be, please reach out and let us know so we could look at trying to add it. And remember, if you're struggling right now, the National Suicide Hotline number is 988-PRESS-1.